Welcome to my channel. In this video today, I'll be giving you a comprehensive beginner tutorial on how you can use SQL Server Management Studio. Now, a lot of people tend to get SQL Server Management Studio confused with SQL Server. Well, SQL Server Management Studio is the application that you use to manage your databases, while SQL Server is the instance that holds your databases. So you use SQL Server Management Studio to connect to your database engine. So when you launch SQL Server Management Studio, you'll get this little connection dialog. It's asking you for your server type, your server name, your authentication, your login, and your password. So when you're connecting to SQL Server, you want to select database engine. And here you're going to specify the name of your server. So the name of my server in this case is MRJM, which is my laptop. If you are in an organization, this could be, say, SQL Server DB01, right? So that is what you would place here. If you install SQL Server on your laptop and you don't know what your server name is, and search for View PC Name, right? So here you're going to select this option that says View PC Name. So here my device name is MRJM. So this is basically the name of the server that is running my SQL Server instance, right? Now, when you're on the same server or computer that is running your SQL Server, instead of specifying the name of the server, you could use localhost. And this will also allow you to connect to the database instance. So if I specify the password, I should be able to connect. However, my instance is not running, so I'm going to launch the configuration manager. So here on the services, I'm going to select start and start the SQL Server instance. And you can see once I was able to start the instance, I was able to connect. Now here you can see the connection. So here you'll see this name of the server, the version of the server, and the user that you are connected has. There's also another way that you could connect. So you could select connect. If you don't know the name of the instance or the name of the server, right, you could specify a period. So when you specify the period, specify the authentication type. Again, here I'm using SQL Server Authentication. It could be Windows Authentication, and it will use the Windows user that was configured when I was installing the server. Right, so if I select connect, I should be able to connect. Now you're seeing the user as MRJM, and instead of a local host or server name, you are seeing the period. So that is how you connect to your database instance. Once you are successfully connected to your database instance, you can explore the list of databases on your server. So here you have a folder called databases. This will show you the list of databases on your instance. Let's minimize that. Here you have security, which will show you the list of logins that are on the instance level. So if we expand logins, you will see the list of users that can currently log into my server. So let's minimize that. So for starters, those are the main things you want to get familiar with. So now we're going to open a new session to one of the database and write our first query. So you're going to expand databases, right click the database that you want to open a new query session to, and then select new query. Now if you're not familiar with the tables in your database, then you can expand the database, expand tables, and you'll see the list of tables in your database. Now instead of typing out the entire name, what you can do is drag and drop the table name. So now we're just going to write a select statement to list all the data which is in the department table. So it's select asterisk. Once you use the wildcard, it's going to select all the columns from the table. Now before you execute your query, you can parse it to ensure that the syntax is correct by selecting this little icon here or selecting Ctrl F5. So this statement will execute successfully. Now once you select execute, it will return all the data within the table. If you have multiple scripts within the same window, let me copy and paste that. Let me paste again. And you only want to execute one of the statements, then you highlight the statement and then you select execute. If you want all the statements to be executed, you can just hit execute and it will return the data. As well as you could highlight a set of statements that you want to execute and then select execute. Now you can actually save this query, right? So instead of writing this query all the time, you can hit the save icon here So if you select save, it's going to ask you where you want to save the file and the name that you want to save the file as. So I'm going to cancel. You can also select file and select save as, and it will take you to the same place. You could also do a Control S and it will bring up the same window. So I'm going to save this as test SQL, right? So select save, and once you go to that folder where you save the file, you should be able to see that test SQL script. So let's close this file. So once we save it, we can also open it, right? So select file, open, select file, and then browse to the directory where you save the file. So it was in SQL Server Management Studio, and this is my test SQL. So here I'm going to open it, and you should see all the statements that were saved in the file. Whenever you execute a query, it has to be executed against a database. To know which database you're using, you can look to the left here, and you'll see that it's using the AdventureWorks 2022 database. You can switch to which database you're using by selecting the drop down and selecting the database that you want. So now if I execute this statement, it will fail, right? You can also use the use. So it failed because the database is in a restoring state and it is not accessible. You can also use the use statement to switch between your database. So I'm going to say use, and again, you can drag and drop. So I'm going to just say use AdventureWorks 2022. So let's execute this. And then when you look to the top of the screen again, it switches to AdventureWorks 2022. You can also use a built-in function called database name to see which database you're working on. So you can say select db underscore name, and then when you execute this, it should show you your database name. You can also get information about your server by selecting from a system variable called version. So when you do a select at that version, it will show you the current version of SQL Server you are running. To get the current date, you will use a simple select statement like select. And when you execute this, you should see the current date and time. In order to create a database using Management Studio, right-click on Database, select Create New, specify the name of your database. So I'm just going to say Test SQL DB. Once you specify the name of your database, select OK. Now in the background, it generated a script to create the database, right? So when you scroll down, you should see the database that was created. You could also use a script to create a database. You could type create database and specify the name of the database that you want to create. So I'm just going to call it DemoDB 2023. Now when we go over to the database section, let's minimize. Now let's do a refresh. You should be seeing the DemoDB 2023 database that was created. In SQL Server Management Studio, you can also create users and logins. Now a login is used to connect to the server, and a user is used to access the database. So that's basically the difference between a login and a user. A user resides at the database level and a login resides at the instance level. So what is the difference? Let's minimize database. So here at the instance, you can see security. So a login will fall under security. Now when you expand database, now expand one of the databases, and under that database, you see a folder called security. So when you expand security, you will see a folder called users. Under the users, you'll see a list of users that exist for your database. However, when you create a new database like DemoDB 2023, a security folder will just have some default. So the DB is default, the guest is default, as well as the sys and the information schema. So now let's create a login. So let's minimize the databases again. So right click on security, select new login, specify a name for your login. So I'm just going to call this login Demo User 2023. If it was a Windows user, you will select Windows Authentication. However, this is going to be a SQL Server authentication, right? So here we're going to specify the username and password, and then I'm going to uncheck these options that say enforce security policy. Now when you're creating the user, you can grant the user permissions. So the permissions can be at the server level or at the database level. So if you want to grant the user permissions at the server level, you select roles, server roles, and then you select the permission that you want to grant. To grant the permissions on the database level, you will select user mappings, select OK. Then you select the database that you want to grant the permission. Now what's going to happen in the background is that a script will be generated to create the user. So let's select the drop down here that says script and script to new query window, because remember, a login is different from a user. So here I'm going to grant the user DB reader permission, right? So I'm going to have to script it out again. So I'm going to script to new query window, right? However, I could just do that once. So here I'm just going to select OK. If you look under the demo DB 2023, you'll realize that it creates a user called demo user 2023. If you look under the instance level, let's refresh. You'll also see the login that is demo user 2023. Now this demo user login is mapped to the user that was created in the demo DB 2023. And that is how the demo user 2023 will have access to the demo DB 2023. So now we can log in as the demo user. So to log in as a user, you can select connect, select database engine, and here we're going to specify the name of the user and the password, and then you select connect. So here we are successfully connected to the database as demo user 2023. Now let's minimize all of these, right? So here you can see that in Management Studio, we can have multiple connections to different servers using different users, right? And connect to different databases as well. So if I had several servers, I could initiate a connection to them using Management Studio. The next important thing that you can use Management Studio to do is backup and restore your database. So here we're going to expand the SQL admin. To back up a database, select the database that you want to back up, select task, select backup, and then here you're going to choose your backup type. It can be a full backup, differential backup, or transaction log. If you want to learn more about these, I've done a course on Udemy, SQL Server Essential Training 2022. You can check that course out to learn more about database administration. However, I'm just covering some essential here on how to use Management Studio. So here's where you'll have your backup location. So because I took a backup before, my location is saved here by default. So let's remove that. And here you want to choose your destination. So I'll be backing up to my disk. If you're backing up to somewhere like Azure Blob storage, then you will use a URL. So here, select add. The default location for your backups will come up here. And then you specify a name for your backup. And you want to specify the extension of that back as well. So when I select OK, it will add the location here and the name of the file. So when I select OK now, it will go ahead and back up my database. Once the operation has been completed successfully, select OK. Now guess what? We can now delete this database and restore from a backup. So because I have existing connections to my database, it failed. So what I can do here is close existing connections and then select OK. Now it will go ahead and close the connections and then delete the database. So when I hit database and select refresh, I will no longer be seeing the AdventureWorks 2022 database. Now let's expand, and now we can see that the AdventureWorks database 2022 has been deleted successfully. So to restore a database, right click, select restore database, select device, and then you're going to select this little icon here and browse for the backup that you took. So here you're going to select add, and then it's going to go to the default backup directory, and then you select the database backup and select OK. Select OK. If you want to change the name of the database while restoring, you could change it from here. So I'm going to change from 2022 to 2023 and then select OK. Once the restore is completed successfully, select OK. Now here our database has been restored successfully. To view the default location or change the default location of your backups, you can right click the name of the server, select properties, go to database settings, and then from here you can change your backup location. So you'd select this icon and then you browse for the directories that you want to use. Or let me show you another way you could do it. So you could go to your Windows, go to the folder that you want to use, so for example temp, and then here anywhere in this bar you could double click and then you just copy the location. So I would right click, copy, and then you just paste the location here. So if I wanted this change to be applied, then I'll just select OK. However, I'm not going to make any change here. You can also make changes to how much memory the SQL Server instance uses using Management Studio. So here in the server properties, you go to memory and then you can set the minimum amount of memory that you want to use as well as the maximum amount of memory. So what this is saying is that SQL Server will use no more than 200 megabytes of memory on my laptop. Over in a production environment or work environment, you can set it to about 80% of your available memory on your server. So here I'm going to select cancel because I don't want to change my database backup location. You can also increase your font or decrease your font. So you may be saying why my font is a little bit bigger than yours. So you can go to tools, go to options, and then under environment, if it's minimized, you select environment, then you go to fonts and colors, and from here you can increase or decrease the font. So I'm going to push this up to about 16 and you can change the font type if you wish, right? So here I'm going to select OK and you can see that my font size has been increased. Now I also want to introduce you to the execution plan. Now the execution plan shows basically the path that your query took to return the result. So let's close this window. No, I don't want to save it. Let's close this one. Let's close that. Now let's close this one as well. So expand the AdventureWorks 2022 database or whatever year is this called, right? Right click and then select top 1000. This will generate a quick select statement to show the top 1000 records in the table. So you'll use this sometime whenever you want to do a quick view of the data within your table. So as database administrators, it is very important that you understand the execution plan. You have the actual execution plan as well as you have a live execution plan. You can also do an estimated execution plan, right? So the estimated can differ from the actual. So to do an estimated, you can do Control M or from the top menu, select query and then you scroll down and select this option that says display estimated execution plan. So this will give you an idea of what the execution plan will look like. So whenever you're reading the execution plan, you read from right to left. So what it will show you is the various operations that occurred for your query to be returned. To enable the actual execution plan, you can enable it from here. So you are going to click this little icon here, which looks like 3 squares. So when you execute this, it will show the execution plan after the query is completed. So it is pretty much similar to the estimated one. You could also use a live execution plan. So if while the query is executing, you want to see what's taking place, then you use option here to enable the live execution plan. So while the query is running, you will see what's happening. However, this is very quick and short, so you won't see it live in action. However, if it was a longer query, then you will see the execution plan while the query is running. So it's very important that you take some time to learn how to read the execution plan because it is very important for performance tuning. SQL Server also has a database tuning advisor. You can use this to view recommendations for your database. To access this, select Query and then scroll down to Analyze Query in Database Engine Tuning Advisor. So it will bring up a window just like you're connecting to SQL Server. So you're going to specify your server name, your authentication type, your login, and your password, right? And then select Connect. So you can analyze multiple databases. So here I'm just going to select 2 databases and then select Start Analysis. So if there were any recommendations for my database, they will be shown here. So you can see the reports as well. So using SQL Server Management Studio is pretty much an introduction to managing SQL Server databases. Now, this is just a tip of the iceberg, and if you want to learn more, you can stay tuned to my channel, as well as you can check out my courses on Udemy. The link will be in the description below. And specifically, you can check out the SQL Server Essential Training 2022, right? So that goes over the core things that you need to learn as a database administrator. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.